Hey everyone, I recently had a question by a member of the Bug Out location about the different types of Mylar bags, what you can store in them, what they're good for. And I wanted to do what I want to do in this video is just do a quick overview of what they are, the different sizes there are, what you can store in them, how much of the oxygen absorbers you need to use depending on what you're storing and what size. Also, sealing the bags themselves. I want to go through a few of the questions that I hear from time to time in the preparedness community about using Mylar bags, as well as some of the misconceptions. Some of these I hear over and over and over again, and it just never ceases to amaze me. First, let's go over the different types of bags, and I just got a collection here of some of the ones that I have. I've got these that I got from Wallaby, which I will go over, some of the reputable companies as well. Wallaby is my go-to for Mylar bags just because I trust them. But this is the three different types here. You've got the 5mm 4x6, 5mm 6x9, and the 7.5mm 10x14. What these are basically pint-sized with the gussets on the bottom and the zippers on top. And then you've got the quart size, same thing, and then you've got the gallon sized bags right here. I have had these for a long time and didn't know how much I was going to use them until I got the Harvest Right freeze dryer. And then as you can see, with a meal like this, I am using these all the time. So it really just depends on what you're putting in your food. Then you've got the larger 5-gallon size, and this one right here is the one with the gusset at the bottom and then the zipper on top. These, you can get these just a plain bag without all the fancy stuff on it. I have some of these somewhere, and come to think of it, looking at this table, every bag I have has got the gusset and the zipper on it. So I do like these a little bit better because it gives me the option of, let me put this aside, it gives me the option if I have to open this bag and I don't use everything in it. Which one do I have here? This rice is a good example. I have this bag of rice right here. If I open this up, I can close this without having to put this in another container or resealing this. I've got the zipper right there on the top, the seal, and I don't have to worry about it. Now, as far as oxygen absorbers for your packaged meals. This is a question, it gets kind of confusing sometimes because you've got all the different sizes and these people will send them to you and you're not sure exactly what goes in what and how much. My rule of thumb, and this varies, so this isn't written in stone. There are a bunch of great articles about how much to use and what type of food you're using, but between 400 and 500 cc's per gallon is usually pretty close. Now, like I said, it's different depending on what food you store. If you're storing flour that takes up a lot of the volume of that container or that bag, there's not going to be as much air in there. If you are storing pasta, beans, things like that there's still going to be more volume, there's still going to be more air in that bag, then you may need more oxygen absorbers in there. But a general rule of thumb is 400 to 500 cc's per gallon. And I like to go over that amount because it's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to these types of bags. And I'll go over the mill and the quality and all that as well, but it's better to be safe than sorry. You can't use too much when it comes to oxygen absorbers, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, also with the oxygen absorbers, you will see, like these ones right here, I'm sure are one of those. I bought these in the past. I can't even remember where I bought them, but you can see on these, there's that little pink dot on there, and that is telling you that there is no oxygen present in those oxygen absorbers. If that turns purple, that means there's oxygen in there. With these, the cheaper ones, you don't get that, even though I like the fact that these are individually packaged rather than a full pack of, I believe there's 10 in there. You don't know how well they are. Now you can mess with them. Let me open this a little bit and I'll show you. You can tell a little bit if they are flexible like that. If they feel like a brick, they're not any good. But if they're flexible and grainy, they're still probably pretty good. So you can tell that way. But the best way is to have that little dot on there is going to tell you, it's a visual indication that yes, these are fine. The Fresh Pack also has the same thing on them. So reputable companies, you're going to get a good product from reputable companies, which leads me to where to get your Mylar bags and who to get them from. And this is one I'd love to hear your comments below. I know there are a couple that I can think of right off the bat, and that is Wallaby Mylar bags and then Pack Fresh, which are the two that I know if I order something, it's going to be a quality product. There are so many different things on Amazon, so many different retailers of Mylar bags made from China and all that different stuff. You have no idea what you're getting. In my opinion, if you're storing something and you want it to last for long term, whether that be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you want to make sure that what you're doing is going to work. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. So when it comes to storing for long-term storage, the food for long-term storage, always buy, even though it's a little bit more expensive and you can probably find something that might be half the price on Amazon, don't cheap out like I normally do. Make sure you're getting the good quality stuff. All right, so now as far as what you can store in each of these bags, and it really is, the size of bag is going to be dependent on what you store, but the amount of time you store them is going to be dependent on the food that you put in these bags. But, the amount of time can be anywhere from a year up to 20 years, depending on what you store. One of the misconceptions, and I'll go through more here in a bit, is that whenever you put something in a Mylar bag, you're good to go for 20 years, you can just put it away. That isn't necessarily the case. While it is for some foods don't last as long. Nuts, chips, and chocolate. Brown rice is another one that's got a little bit of oil in it. It'll go rancid regardless of how you store it. Those will last about a year or so. Then you've got dehydrated meat, like beef jerky. You're looking at a year to 3 years. You've got baby formula, powdered milk, spices, and things like that, which are good for like 3 to 5 years in a Mylar bag, which is much longer than, sitting in your pantry. And spices don't necessarily go bad, but they lose their potency, they lose their flavor. So if you could use maybe one of these little tiny, little pint-sized Mylar bags, throw some of your herbs in there, you're going to know that those are going to be good if you need them, and they're going to sit, on your shelf for 3 to 5 years. Now you mark on the bag, and then once they are past that expiration date, you open them up, check them out. Maybe use them, maybe throw them away, do whatever you need to do. Some of the things that are going to last like 10 to 20 years, you're talking a lot of the different types of beans, you're talking about white flour, things like that. So you're not going to, depending on how you seal it, and depending, I know everybody's got their own opinions on this, and I do as well, but you're looking at between 10 and 20 years. So it really depends on how it's packaged, how it's sealed. I know a lot of these companies, like Augustin Farms, we've got a big, huge bucket of flour that is good for 25 years, they claim. It's all a matter of how it's packaged and how confident you are in the process. My whole point with this, and there's a bunch of articles on what exactly you can store and how long it will store. My whole point with this is just because you put it in a Mylar bag doesn't mean it's good to go for 25 years. Now that's why I decided to get the Harvest Right, because the Harvest Right freeze dries everything, meaning it takes the moisture out of everything. And these are chicken strips that I made, which are absolutely fantastic, by the way. But it takes the moisture out of everything. So this does have a shelf life of 25 years, 20 years, give or take, depending on how it's sealed. And I will go over how it's sealed as well and the type of bag you're using. So again, it really is important if you're looking at that long-term stuff to make sure that you're using a good quality bag, you're using good quality oxygen absorbers from reputable companies. And one more thing on that is to make sure that I'm trying to see this one right here. This is an MRE that I made a little while back, and I'm going to open this up pretty soon because I'm not exactly happy with, I'm not exactly confident in the products that I put in here because they were all pre-packaged things. But one of the most important things when you're packaging up this food is to mark clearly exactly what is in this. Like this one is raw eggs. So I put really clearly on the top that this is raw, because the last thing you want to do is open this up and grab a spoonful. Mark really clearly, because by the time you use this, if it does sit on your shelf for 3 to 4 years, you want to have as much information on this label as you possibly can. How much, like with this chicken right here, and this is a pretty simple one because it's just all you do is soak it in water. But if it was something else like a soup, or the eggs right here say 1-to-1 water to eggs, so a half a cup of eggs to a half a cup of water. This has got that a quarter of a cup equals 2 eggs. It's got all that information on there, so I know exactly what I'm doing. If I'm using it for a recipe, whether that's a year from now or 15 years from now, I know exactly what's in there. Now, as far as sealing the bags and taking all the oxygen out, I have seen some place where they talk about using a food saver to suck all the air out of the Mylar bag. That is not absolutely necessary. The oxygen absorber is in there to take the oxygen out of this. Doesn't mean it's going to take the air out. As you can see, this doesn't look like it has been run through a vacuum sealer, because it doesn't take all the air out. It takes all the oxygen out, which basically just leaves nitrogen, mostly nitrogen, in there. And that is one of the misconceptions I hear and see all the time, is like people think that they have this bag sealed and they've got an oxygen absorber in there, and it's not doing its job because they can still see some air and things like that in there, which is not the case. That's not what an oxygen absorber does. And whether if you want to suck out all the air with a vacuum sealer, you can do that. I know some people do. I don't bother with it. I just sort of squeeze out as much air as I can and then seal it up, and then close the zipper and then seal it up. The reason I don't put a lot of time and effort into making sure I get most air out of there is because I don't want to damage the bag. If I'm messing with the bag too much, there's chances that it's going to poke through there and it's going to ruin the whole thing. So I just don't bother too much with that. Now, the zippers are great, but they are not completely airtight. With this, I want to show you the difference, and hopefully you can see this. I've got 3 bags here, which are sealed by 3 different methods. This bag of rice right here is sealed. I sealed this with an iron. So I basically just put this, I got a 2x4, you put a 2x4 underneath this, and then you just run an iron on top, and it seals the whole thing. Now, this is a good method to use because you know it's going to be a tight seal, but it's not so convenient when you go take this off. You may have to go underneath the zipper seal if you seal it too close to the zipper seal. This right here is what I wanted to show you. This is the difference between a cheap impulse sealer, which is this one right here, the ones you can get on Amazon for really cheap and who knows how long they last, and this is the one sealed by the Harvest Right. Now, this one has got a much thicker seal, and the Harvest Right impulse sealer, the element on that runs across the end, from end to end, is probably a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick. I don't know exactly how thick it is. Whereas the low-cost ones is basically just a piece of wire or 2 pieces of wire. So you can see on this one that it's just a whole lot better to use a quality sealer if you're going to go with that method. I know, like I said, this one I used an iron on. I know you can use a straight iron, a flat iron. I don't necessarily trust those too much, and I know some people do, because I don't trust myself basically to make sure I've got a complete seal all the way across this. That's what I want to have. So it is worth the money if you want to go that route of getting a good quality sealer, or just using, if you don't have that money, I would say an iron is probably your best bet. You just want to make sure it is completely sealed all the way across. You don't have a little gap right here where air could get in or something like that. So sealing It just like everything else in this, all of these different steps, from the bag that you use to the oxygen absorbers you use, all of these play a role in how effective your packaging is going to be. And if you're spending the time doing this stuff, repackaging food, you want to get it right, because if it's going on your shelf for 5 to 20 years, however long it may be, you want to make sure when you go to grab that in a disaster or an emergency that it is good to go, and you're not going to have to worry about throwing 15 different things out just to get one meal. All right, so I want to go over a few of the misconceptions, and I found this on FreshPak's website, and they go over a few things that people always talk about, but it's not necessarily true. And the first one they've got here is, like I talked about a little earlier, your Mylar bag will look vacuum packed when oxygen has been removed. And this is false. It's a very common misconception that the vacuum packed look is a confirmation that the oxygen has been removed. This myth is probably why people seem to think some oxygen absorbers don't work. True, it will often take this effect, but it doesn't mean that it's always going to do that. Like I said earlier, oxygen absorbers don't absorb air, they absorb oxygen, which is 21% of air. So the rest is going to be nitrogen. The next one they've got here is the thicker Mylar works best. And this is false as well. Thickness only relates to the physical strength of the bag and the weight it will hold. Think of like a milk jug versus a 2-liter water bottle. The milk jug is good. You're going to be able to crush a milk jug a lot easier than you will a 2-liter water bottle. Same thing applies here. You got the really thick stuff is just going to be the reason that preppers talk about 5 mil or better for food storage is because of the safety factor, and you want to make sure that it's going to withstand as much as possible. This is one that I hear all the time, and this is, you should check your new Mylar bags for leaks. Some will have small holes at the folded creases. And I hear people talking about how they've stuck a flashlight inside their bags and they see these tiny holes, almost like Christmas lights. And I hear this all over the place. I hear it on survival forums. If you go to Amazon and you'll read the reviews, you'll see it there as well. All these people talking about, my bags have pinholes. I was only able to use 1 out of 10 of them. And the truth is, Mylar itself is transparent. Normal use, such as filling it and moving it around, is going to cause tiny breaks in the foil layer, which is in between. It's actually in the middle. So that silver look that it's got is in between the 2 layers of Mylar. But if that breaks, you're going to get those little tiny holes. So it doesn't mean that there is a hole in your Mylar bag. It just means that that foil in that spot is no longer there. And it doesn't matter as far as how good the Mylar bags are. I have tested, every single time I have tested a Mylar bag with that method, every single time I find bags that have those little tiny, little starlight type holes in them. That is Wallaby, that is FreshPak, that is, I don't care who it is, some of the most reputable companies, it is just part of the process. So that is one of those things that you hear all the time in the preparedness community. And I can't tell, you're going to hear 95% of the people saying that and only 5% talking about how it's just not true. So one other misconception that I hear all the time as well, or question, I suppose, less a misconception and more a question, is, will Mylar bags be effective against an EMP? And the answer is basically no. I wouldn't bet your life on it. They're not, the material that this is made of, it's like I said, it's only part of it is aluminum or whatever they use, and it's not particularly effective against, deflecting the EMP. Sort of like a microwave. You hear that all the time as well. If you want to sort of take the chance on that, then I suppose so. But Mylar bags are not an effective method against an EMP. There are bags that are made specifically for that. Disaster Preparer has some. There are a bunch of different places that have some good quality EMP bags. That's the route I would take. I wouldn't depend on this type of bag, this Mylar bag, to protect against an EMP. It's just not what this is made for. So at any rate, that's all I can think of right now. If you do have any other questions, or if there's anything I didn't answer about this, like I said, this is just a general video on what to expect and how to use Mylar bags at thebugoutlocation.com, the membership website. I've got a course over there on food storage, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about all the different things that I talked about today. The mill, the thickness, the oxygen absorbers, and everything in here, and go into a lot more detail and put a guide together on if you're storing flour, this is what you should use. If you're storing beans and rice or whatever, this is what you should use. But this video was just the way I do things. I'd love to hear your comments, how you do things differently, if you use that vacuum sealer and vacuum sealing versus this, which is a whole nother video, vacuum sealing versus Mylar. It's a whole nother video, but love to hear your comments below. If there's something I didn't answer, if there's a different technique you use, something that could help people out. But that's it for this video today. I appreciate everyone listening. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button and the notification bell to get notified whenever we do more videos or do live videos. But I appreciate it, everyone. Take care and prepare. We will talk to you all later.